Welcome to TGM Aware, the official podcast of the Gospel Mission in Sioux City, Iowa. Each month, we bring you real stories, honest conversations, and behind-the-scenes insights into the work of Rescue Women. From staff and volunteers to community partners and guests, we explore how lives are being transformed with Christ-centered care. Thanks for joining us. Let's dive in. Hey everyone, welcome to TGM Aware, the official podcast of the Gospel Mission. I'm your host of this podcast and Associate Executive Director of the mission, Nate Gates. And today, I am excited because we have a very, very special guest who's familiar with the mission. His name is a good friend of mine, Tim Hall. Tim, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I've been anticipating being on this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's awesome to have you. We've known each other for, I guess I've been here 5 years, but you've been around the mission a lot longer than that. So first off, I always like to get people's stories. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, your testimony.
Sure.
Anything you want to share. So go ahead, tell us about Tim Hall.
As most of you may know, I'm not from the Midwest. I'm actually from Southern California, and that is my call sign. We were sent by our home church to pioneer a new work, to plant a church in South Sioux City about 15 years ago. I had the privilege of pastoring that for 9 years, but felt a call, a draw to a transition into rescue missions work full time. And so I was bivocational for a season, but have really spent the last 5 or 6 years here full time at the mission.
Yeah. And so that story, I know it well. We're good friends, coworkers, but going from California to Iowa, tell a little bit more about the call that your pastor that he did and how you you explain it.
Yeah. For those of you that are in the ministry, you can be burdened with something, but usually what the X factor is the timing. And so for years, I would have maps all over our house with pens on where I was hoping that the Lord would send us. And of course, after several years of that, to my wife's consternation, though she was very patient, we came to an agreement. And we said, if we are to be sent, then Pastor Rawl will give us the city and state. And we agreed upon that. It took about 5 years. But then one night during an elders meeting, it was our midweek service. It was a Wednesday night. There's about 30 of us upstairs in sort of the elders room, or a place where we would pray before service. As Pastor Rawl was walking in, the first person he addressed was me. He said, "Tim, I need to talk to you." And the moment he said that, I knew right away I was getting ready to hear the city and state. And so right after we're done praying, actually, no, he stopped the prayer meeting to pull me outside and ask me if we would come to South Sioux City, Nebraska. After he told me, I excused myself from the meeting and I went and I called my wife. But listen, this is probably the best part of the story. The moment I called, before I even said anything, I said, "Hi, babe." And she goes, "Oh no, Rawl told you the city and state." And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Oh no, it's cold." Now, not being from the Midwest, I had no idea of the snowfalls, but our suspicion it was going to be somewhere that would be much different in Southern California.
That's just kind of funny. I'm picturing this. Here you are, your states. Oh, we're going here. All right, where is it? South is. Where is that on the map?
So, apart from maybe flying over to get to the East Coast for a surf session, I'd never been in the Midwest.
Yeah. So you've been here 15 years.
Yep.
And tell us a little bit about your testimony, because you were in California, you were at a mega church, 10,000.
Sure.
But you have such a amazing testimony that not only is it awesome to see the work God's done in you, but it also transitions that to you being here at the
Sure. Like most of my generation, I was raised by a single parent, my mom. So after the divorce, because my mom was left with 2 boys, she went to work full time, which then left us in the care of a babysitter, but also kind of left alone, somewhat neglected. And so during those years when my mom was working and me being by myself, certainly temptations came my way and would soon begin to seduce me and draw me into things. And I got into a lot of trouble when I was a young man. My mom ended up remarrying, and we moved to a place in Orange County called Anaheim, California. And it was there that I would then be introduced to stronger temptations that would ultimately sort of captivate my heart and, as we know, enslave me into sin. My ambition was to be a professional surfer. So when I was 18, I did move to the Hawaiian Islands. I was on the island of Oahu. I lived in a place called New Valley, Our street name was Kalani Aniole. Kalani Aniole, also known or better known as Highway 1. The challenge is growing up in that beach culture and sort of that beach scene. There was a lot of trappings. And of course, I would succumb to those. And before you know it, I'm not surfing anymore. And now I'm a drug addict, falling into deeper and deeper darkness and despair. But it was in that darkness and in that despair that by God's grace, he would lead me to a recovery community where I met a man by the name of Jeff, and he shared the gospel with me. Yeah. And what he did for me was finally, for the first time, give me a biblical diagnosis that I wasn't a drug addict, but that I was a sinner and that I need to be reconciled with my God. And that was in 1997. He did invite me to church. The following year, so I went to church for the first time in Easter of 1998. Invitation was given, and I went forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's just, again, cool to hear everyone's testimony, everyone's story, how God uses and leads that into where we're at today. So think you're at the gospel mission. There's people who are broken, they're abandoned, they're abused, they're struggling with drugs and stuff like that. And you have this guy right here who I've never known this. I mean, getting to know him, I know this now, but now here he is. He's our program director, which we'll talk about in a bit. He's about ready to get his doctorate. He is going to be Dr. Hall, which sounds a little scary to some, but he will be. He does mission trips. I mean, he's poured into me. I mean, it's just awesome to see what God does. And it reminds me of Romans 8:28. Amen. You love God. He works everything out according to his glory, his purpose, and now you get to pour into the guys here. So thanks for sharing that. But let's talk about the mission, the gospel mission.
Yes.
Tell us your role, your title, the responsibilities that you have here at the mission.
So my title is the director of men's program currently, but I really function as a caseworker. So a lot of time, the Lord will bring men into our care, onto our campus, and ultimately, it's my job to transition them out. And so we have a few programs here, Shelter to Launch and Metamorphosis, as you know. And those programs are really tailored for those men in crises that come into our care so that they might, again, find a sense of stabilization, sort of get back on their feet so that they might transition out of our care, hopefully into a spiritual community, into a local church so that they don't have to return. And so I'm more of the offboarding or outboarding or off ramp. I try to get guys out of our care as soon as they're ready.
Yeah, and one of the things, I mean, you and I talk about this quite a bit, is being in the trenches.
Yes.
Yeah, so talk a little bit more about that, being in the trenches, what that means, what we mean by that. And even talk maybe a little bit about what differs from that, being in the trenches, opposed to other organizations.
That's a great question. When it comes to my personal story, because of what God has done in my life, in his grace, having rescued me from similar situations, it does give me a sense of credibility, street cred.
Yeah.
And so empathy is really what I use to reach these guys. But when someone comes into our care, they're coming out of darkness and they have sometimes not even a glimmer of hope. And so in that crisis, it's really our calling, our privilege to really love them up so that God may not only introduce himself, but begin to enter into their lives. And so what makes us unique is, one, the Christian perspective. We are really a Bible-based, so it's the authority. Yeah. It's what we turn to, not just as our foundation, but really to frame our programs. And with that, we are an agency in town, probably the only one that really brings hope to those that are in crises and in darkness. Now, we do have other valuable entities in town, agencies, which are dear partners of ours that we love to work with. But really what sets us aside is the hope of Christ.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just being relational and doing life with people. Mm-hmm. I think even at times we talk about how church can be so easy, come in, hear a great message, great worship. All right, now I'm done. But then like Monday through Friday, we're the ones that are, doing life with them, hearing their stories.
Yes.
So it takes a special person to work here. It really does, man. And you've been how long at the mission total?
I was thinking about that this morning. I think the first time I taught chapel here was either July or August of 2010. Yeah. And so the chaplain at the time heard my story, invited me in to do a chapel service. In fact, I was here quite a bit, usually once a month or twice a month. But once our church started growing, it turns out one of our former directors of the women's ministry, Nettie Tullis, asked if I would have a greater presence here on campus. And so I began to sort of function as a volunteer chaplain under the current one over at the women's shelter. So I was there from 2014 to 2017. And of course, during that time, I was also a board member. It was during that time, the former executive director asked me to come on staff and take up the chaplaincy role. And that would have been 2017.
So you've been the chaplain, you run the program. I mean, obviously work with men each and every single day. I mean, what would you say, what's the best moment about working here at the mission? What's the best thing to working with our guys?
And even to backtrack, something you said earlier, one of the challenges I think of this ministry is that you do fall in love with those that are in our care. And so some of these men, yes, they're guests, yes, they're residents, but they really become friends. And so when you hear about someone making the wrong decision or, God forbid, relapsing, or maybe like a dog returning to his vomit, it's always heartbreaking because there is that relationship and they've become dear to you and value to your life. And so I struggle with that. But at the same time, the answer to your question is time with the men.
Yeah.
That which is, often the most heartbreaking is probably the most rewarding.
Yeah. Just doing life with these guys. And we see some growth with our guys. I mean, talk a little bit about Metamorphosis, that program, what it is. Just share about the guys. You don't have to name them by any means, but share some of the highlights, success stories, and even, like you like to say, just share the dirty stuff here. Some of the things that have gone on that's just like really tough that people don't really know.
So what Nate's alluding to is when we do a visit with partners and we do presentations, we often ask, well, what's the word on the street? Yeah. What's the gossip? What's the dirty laundry about the mission? Because I've been here for a while, we've had a chance to run several pilot programs, but not always successful. In fact, rarely did we find traction, and therefore we didn't find any fruit. But then together as a team, and this is really something that I've inherited, was a program called Metamorphosis. And what makes this one unique, though I think in the past we had the right oversight, we had the right utilities and curriculum and all those things, but for some reason in God's timing, this particular program is extremely fruitful. And so I think for the first time, most of us that are involved in it are rather surprised that it's working so well. And I don't say that, in a negative way, but we've really labored long. We really, dug deep with these guys, but there's some incredible fruit. I have witnessed legitimate transformation in guys under our care in that program.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking of some of the guys who we've had many conversations with, and they wanted to throw in the towel. And we're like, just hang in there. Hang in there. They've hung in there. They are on the verge of graduating in the next month, which is really cool. They go to a church. They did a church I'm a part of. They go to that. They help out. They volunteer. They are actually staff members. They are temporary staff members with the hopes of the next month hiring them full time. And so it's just kind of cool to see. And this is the guy who oversees it and runs it there. One thing that we talk about partners, you talk about chapel, but even for Metamorphosis or anywhere else, just the need for other churches, other partners come on campus. Share a little bit about that. What the biggest need is. Whether it is Metamorphosis or S2L, how they can get involved.
One of the things that I appreciate so much about the Lord is doing in these men's lives is, as Nate said, not only are they staff members or colleagues and co-workers, but they're really becoming leaders in our community. And so in order to develop more leaders like these men, we need to have the local church partner with us. We are able to, as a staff, because most of us have been trained theologically or are currently functioning as pastors, are able to mentor and disciple. But before you know it, these men will be graduating, as you mentioned, and they'll be leaving our care. And so as they transition, or better, as they bridge out,
bridge out of the bridge,
they bridge out of the bridge apartments, we want them to land in, a safe and healthy church. But in order to do that, we need those churches on campus to partner with us now.
Yeah, just those relationships. And as you showed up with these programs, they're 6 months each, around 6 months, Metamorphosis a little bit longer, but after they're done, they're out. So we're just, we're the parachurch. We're not the church. And so we do require them to go to church on Sunday. You have to go. Why? Because we believe wholeheartedly that you need to be a body of believers, like-minded people there to come alongside, love them, do life with them. But we only do it for a season. So we want to continue to see that growth. So the church partnership is huge. So coming on campus, checking us out, being part of Metamorphosis, teaching a class, a lot of different ways there. Okay, so we talked about partners with churches, but those aren't the only partners that we have or we need. There's a lot of other organizations that we've given info tours, and they partner with us here on campus at the Mission. Tell us a little bit about that.
So one of the things we've noticed is obviously we've fostered and developed our own community, but the reality is most guests that come into our care are coming from another community. And so we've had a chance to reach out and touch bases and introduce ourselves with other local agencies and entities that are sort of in the homeless or, care for the poor type of space. And so that's been a very intriguing and very interesting. We have a standing appointment actually twice a month with Unity Point, where they invite us down on the campus. We get to do a presentation with the behavioral unit. And so it's really keeping us connected with a potential candidates for our care. And so that list of partners is actually growing.
Unity Point. We've been to Crittenden Center. We've gone to Rosecrans, which I think that's been a fruitful relationship. We've had a few Iowa Works. We worked with them. So just interesting how, we may be Christian based, but we're all serving the same audience here. We're working with each other. On that there, what would you say to someone, give your pitch for an organization to come in and help out volunteer, or the church to come on and do chapel or Metamorphosis? Why should they be here? What's your pitch? Why you should volunteer at the Gospel Mission?
My 30-second pitch. It's interesting because even reaching out to these agencies, one of the things that Nate and I have noticed that it is ministry to them.
Yeah.
And so not only are we doing sort of informational tours, but we're also sharing in the gospel. I think of Crittenden, you had a chance to tour their campuses and see their little houses. Well, just that short visit is actually a relationship where now they're working with probably 3, 4, maybe 5 of our current guests that are in our care, young men, 18, 19 years old. And so, as the sort of profile of the typical homeless man has really changed. But when we're looking for partners, again, recognizing that we want the opportunity to minister someone that is maybe bridging out or exiting a program. We'd like an opportunity for someone to come into our care. Ultimately, it's to build on what's ever been laid through that agency, but also to bring in the spiritual component, through our chapel services and our local partnerships with churches to share the gospel and to disciple these men, and then send them out so that they might be productive, healthy individuals in our community.
Yeah, it's a blessing. It's a reward, whether it's here at the Mission, working with other like-minded agencies. Taught a lot of good stuff from, brokenness, abandonment, personal stories, to now being here at the Mission, to our programs, doing life with these guys in the trenches, building partners. So there's a lot to be done here at the Gospel Mission. And we're just thankful for the opportunity, as you and I talked about, being ambassadors, instruments used by God, to just be a part of this ministry. So it is cool, man. You and I will be in Nicaragua in a couple of months.
We will be January.
Yeah, teaching other pastors. Not that the mission goes global or anything, just you and I do that on the side. But it's a blessing to work with you. You've mentored me over the years. You provide a lot of encouragement to me in my current role. So I just want to say I love you, man. I appreciate it.
Likewise. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
What's that? Shaka. We're good. Thanks for listening to this episode of TGM Aware. To partner with us in transforming lives, visit thegospelmission.org. Subscribe and share to help others become aware, because together we make a difference.